Hey guys, welcome back to As a Man Thinketh on Yanasa TV. If you're living up in the northeast of the United States this year, you better get yourself prepared. And I'm going to get into why in just a couple minutes. Real quick, Yanasa TV is sponsored now by Yanasa Trading Company. Yanasa Trading Company is a trading company that we have set up to help showcase either local businesses, or we try and find products or have products made in the USA. We have a lot of t-shirts on there that have been a popular thing. Not all of our shirts. There's a flannel shirt, and I just designed a fishing shirt that are not made in the USA. We have sometimes some hard times finding a lot of different types of shirts that are made in the USA and have them made. As we get bigger, we'll be able to have our own things made, and that's a big goal of that. But local small businesses, we brought the Buffalo Wool Company on. I've been working on trying to get several more businesses. Today we've added Custer Custom Leathers. Custer Custom Leathers is out of Columbia, Kentucky. It's run by Titus and Kennedy, a husband and wife. They're hard workers and they make some great leather goods. So check out Yanasa Trading Company and see some of our new vendors. The Buffalo Wool Company, which makes socks, beanies, gloves, you name it, out of bison fiber, and also Custer Custom Leather. One of the other goals of Yanasa Trading Company is to promote products that help promote American agriculture. You know, leather products are an important add value to our cattle industry. Bison wool products are an important value add to our bison industry. Obviously, buying US made cotton t-shirts are an important value add to cotton farmers. Anyway, so why is the Northeast in big trouble? Politics is to blame. People, it's an election year. People want to look good to you and I. Of course, to me, this does not look good at all. What I'm about to tell you will almost sound like an enemy of the United States of America passed a bill in the United States of America. So the NOAA just released its most active hurricane forecast ever in history. In 2010, they said that 2010 was kind of their last historic landmark figure of this size, and they estimated between 14 and about 21 to 23 storms. This year, they're actually forecasting between 17 and 25 storms. There are a couple things that are going on here that I agree with their prediction, and I think it could happen. If you look at the tropical waves just within the past week that are coming off the coast of Africa, we've actually had 4 tropical waves now coming off of the coast of Africa.
Here are the 4 tropical waves. Here's that one near Guyana and Suriname now. That'll bring an increased chance of rain near Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago. I'll get into that. Here's that diminishing first tropical wave of the season. Still some heavier rain around and flooding rain parts of Costa Rica and Panama. I'm going to zoom down and I want to go island by island with some of the rain totals as you hang with me. But we have these 4 tropical waves, none showing signs of development, but it does have my attention how healthy these are as they come off the coast of Africa.
And typically you'll see between 55 and 65 tropical waves a year coming off the coast of Africa. But we don't see all of those develop into named storms. We don't necessarily see them all become major hurricanes. This particular hurricane season, they're forecasting as many as 8 major hurricanes to develop off of the coast of Africa as they come across the United States. So this is a very active hurricane season. Part of the issue that we're seeing is how warm the Atlantic is. And I've talked about this on our channel before, but Enzo, which is the Pacific Ocean, is primarily impacted by solar forcings. This has nothing to do with climate change or anything like that. It's even on, NASA's website. Whoever studies Enzo will tell you that it's based upon solar forcings. Most of the temperatures of the oceans on our planet are impacted by solar forcings. And so what we're seeing in the Atlantic is unusually warm temperatures. And the water is well above, its average temperature right now this time of year. So that is creating an environment that as we get into the season will very quickly warm up and start producing some of these named storms. The other factor is that because of those solar forcings, we're now seeing ourselves go back into a La Nina for the third time in 4 years. And that is going to reduce wind shear across the Atlantic, which allows these storms to form and then hit the United States. And actually in La Nina years, it does open the door for more storms into the Gulf. And the Gulf is extremely warm right now. Ultimately, it just allows more of these hurricanes to form. So if you are on the East Coast of the United States, period, you should be paying attention to this year's hurricane forecast, because you will most likely be impacted before the end of the hurricane season. We live, several hundred miles inland. It takes us about 4 to 5 hours to get to the beach. Well, I guess in some areas it's only about 2.5, 3 hours. But during these active hurricane seasons, we almost always get hit with a hurricane right here where we are. And hurricanes, here could be pretty devastating. We just had a storm. We had some kids out here camping. This time it was a group of girls. My wife was their leader. I help out. And it was their first time ever camping. And I'm sitting there watching the weather, and it looked like there was, this strong storm system moving off to our north. But we were watching it, and we had them all, done for the day in their tents. We had them out on our property because, we were trying to help them work through some different requirements and learning challenges. It's just easier to do it here, so they were camping out on the ranch. We get to about 10:30 at night, and all of a sudden that storm prediction completely changed. And we had 60, 70 mile an hour gusts heading here. The chairs behind me blew off the rock wall. We're in the yard. I mean, things were just blowing everywhere. Luckily, we caught on to that because I am one of those people who watches the weather. My wife calls me the weatherman. We caught onto it. We woke them all up, got them out of their tents, and took the tents down. Literally, as the last tent came down, it was like a squall just started moving through the area. It took out power throughout the area. It was a mess. So when you get some of these storms, even inland, where you're getting 60, 70 mile an hour winds, those winds can cause a significant amount of damage. I think I heard that in town, a transformer had actually caught on fire. I mean, just that little squall was a mess. Imagine going through 6 or 7 hours of that mess. With the downpour of rain, you're gonna have a lot of flooding. So in 2012, Hurricane Sandy hit the Northeast, and Hurricane Sandy was a very impactful storm. And one of the things that happened, one of the fallouts of that storm, was that there was no gasoline. And it caused havoc because people couldn't get access to gasoline. People need gasoline for generators. When the power grid fails, when things fall apart, gasoline is a lifesaver. Okay, you have to have gasoline. It could save people's lives in many situations, because there are people, during long-term power outages, there are always fatalities, unfortunately, because we are a society of people who have become so dependent on power that there are some of us who just simply cannot live without it. And you see that in prolonged power outages.
We're taking a look back now at a part of the disaster you may not remember. In addition to all the homes and businesses Sandy destroyed, it also took out crucial gas and energy infrastructure, leading to extended power outages and long lines for gas.
In November 2012, when you went to fill up, the lines for gasoline stretched for hours.
I've been here for 3 hours.
3 hours!
For 5 hours and a half.
People had the patience for it for the first few days after Sandy, but then it dragged on.
Crazy. We're 10 days into it and we're still waiting on lines for fuel.
I've been hearing rumors that it's going to be this bad until Thanksgiving, so that kind of frightens me.
Back then, the I-Team searched for answers. We called Hess, Phillips 66, Motiva, and Citgo.
Can you tell us when the Linden, New Jersey refinery will be open? Any time frame as to when these fuel terminals will be back online?
What we discovered is that Sandy's storm surge wrecked some of the East Coast's biggest gas refineries. None hit harder than the Phillips 66 Bayway terminal in Linden. Here, 12 to 16 feet of storm surge damaged pumps, electrical systems, and the racks that put gas into delivery tankers. Could that happen again today?
During the last spending bill, in order to get spending passed to get us through 2024. There was one of those little things hidden in there that's going to affect everybody who lives along the Northeast coast. Following Hurricane Sandy's massive gas shortages, they implemented in 2014 under the Obama administration a Northeastern Gasoline Reserve. And the Northeastern Gasoline Reserve basically was put in place with 1 million barrels of gasoline, with some of those stored outside of Portland, Maine, some of them stored in New Jersey. And basically, if there was a significant event, a hurricane, which this season is the most active hurricane season ever predicted by NOAA, they would have the resources to get gasoline out to the people to keep things moving and essentially save lives. What they decided to do in the last spending bill was to sell off all of that gasoline. The only thing this actually justifies is about 15 minutes worth of our federal government spending. That's how much the gasoline is worth. So they decided they're going to sell off all the gasoline supplies. They're going to shut down this gasoline reserve. And then they even put a clause in there that makes it harder for anybody in the United States or for the United States government to reopen a gasoline reserve anywhere in the United States. Now, I know that there were some issues that with how this whole system was constructed. It wasn't constructed, you know, in ways that people felt would be highly productive, but at least the gasoline was there and they could figure out a way to get it out in the event of an emergency. Now they're selling all that off. Some of you may have noticed a slight drop in gasoline prices around Memorial Day. You're going to see a slightly larger drop in gasoline prices around July 4th because once they signed off on this bill to shut it down, sell it off, then what has happened is it's being used as a political tool to make people happy by selling it off during times of holiday travel to reduce the cost of holiday travel so that voters will be happy. And that's exactly what they've stated about it. By strategically releasing this reserve in between Memorial Day and July 4th, we are ensuring sufficient supply flows to the Northeast at a time hardworking Americans need it the most. Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm. So it's not a secret that they're using this as a political tool to appease voters at this time. And they're doing it during these times when people are traveling. I've always wondered, you know, why is it that we've programmed everybody to take their vacations during summertime? My wife and I were talking about this because we were at the beach in the early spring. We don't like to go during the summertime. It's way too hot. It's way too smelly, way too many people, right? But for whatever reason, we think the best time to go to the beach is when nobody else is there and it's a little cooler. But for whatever reason, we have programmed almost the entire United States that summertime is when you go on vacation. And of course, they're all miserable because it's hot and it's the worst time of year to be outside. But that's the time of year that everybody gets off school, there's got to be a conspiracy behind it. The other problem I have with this is that in 2022, we significantly reduced our petroleum reserve, and we haven't built that back up. The fact that we are putting ourselves in a situation where our citizens do not have energy security going into the future. We don't have the energy security for disasters. We don't have the energy security for global disruptions because we're selling off that security is a bit concerning to me. And I think it should be concerning to you. So one of the things that I would be doing if I lived in the Northeast, I live in the mid-Atlantic, so, you know, we do have pipelines here. But I think even then, when there's a disruption like that, you do see gasoline prices go up. And I think, you know, we could be impacted down here by something happening in the Northeast if they have to start shipping gasoline supplies up there. I mean, it will create a lot of headaches because they're getting rid of this 1 million barrel reserve that was put there in place. So knowing that there's a good chance this year that you're going to be hit by one of these storms, right? It's almost a sure thing at this point in time. What could you do to prepare for this? I would suggest if you're a landowner, a rancher, or a farmer, you start looking at some of those above ground storage tanks that you can actually just have filled. And right now, knowing that the gasoline prices are being manipulated lower to make voters happy, go ahead and stock up on that gasoline, because you will need it. You will need it to operate, you will need it for your generators, you'll need it for your power, etc. For those of you who don't have resources like that, I have seen gasoline trailers that I would love to have one of these, because you can literally take it down. It's approved, DOT approved. You can take it down, fill it up. They're not that big. I mean, they'll hold a lot of gasoline. It'll be expensive to fill up, but you fill it up and you can store it somewhere on your property. And I would suggest that for people who maybe have smaller properties. I don't personally want to go through the hassle of installing one of those big tanks and then having to have a truck come out. I like the idea of just taking that little trailer down there. Gas cans are always a great way of storing fuel if you put them in the proper place in your home, your garage, or in an outdoor building. We use the gas cans. They look like the Jimmy gas cans. You can get them at Harbor Freight for, I think they're like 30 bucks, maybe a little more now. But I love those gas cans. I can tell you from experience that I have had one of those. I had a flame come back into one of those gas cans while I was holding it. It seemed to protect me just fine. It was a little scary, and the gas can's a little charred. I think it burnt for several hours. But you know, you can store gas. There are ways of storing fuel that are safe. You just do some research based on what you have, and go ahead and do that now while they're dumping this fuel supply, because as soon as this is causing an artificial decrease in gas prices. So while they're dumping this into the market, go ahead and stock up. You're going to need it, especially when chaos breaks out from one of these storms. I'm not trying to sell anything. I don't have any links below to any of these solutions. I'm just making suggestions. I'm sure there are other people who have suggestions. We have also on this channel, in the past, we brought up a lot of these you know, solar powered energy sources like the EcoFlow whole home solutions. Those are always options as well. But I think ultimately, you know, it's important to have a gas-powered generator on hand, or even go with a propane-powered generator. There are other generator options. But if you want to have fuel for your vehicles, if you need to be able to get around for supplies, things like that, you still need to have some sort of way of storing gas for these major disruptions that are coming. Anyway, guys, you can thank your members of the Senate and House for voting that bill into place, because I read this stuff and I'm like, who would actually pass a bill that would physically put Americans in harm's way? Like, why would they do this? To make up for such a small amount of spending. You know, I mean, they're sending billions of our dollars overseas to fight a war for us that we didn't ask for. But they're willing to sacrifice our own safety and security over what equates to 15 minutes worth of government spending. It truly astonishes me. But it was in the bill, and now we've been put into a position where it's looking like the first year they get rid of that reserve, we could have used it. Anyway, guys, until next time, stay safe.